The cart stopped at her gate. I stepped down at dusk with one trunk, and my mother's brass key cold against my wrist. They had delivered me the way a hold delivers what it owes, sworn, sealed. A debt walked in on its own feet. The galleries of hollow frost were all pale stone and frozen glass, and the court watched me cross them the way courts watch a transaction settle. She was not on the throne. She stood beside it, the crown set aside on the arm of the seat, a plain pewter cup in her hand. Her thumb passed once across the heavy signet ring. I could not read it. She did not look at me. "Give Lady Vance her own rooms," she said. "Let me back up. House Vance held Greymarch for 200 years, and for most of them, we mattered. The hold sits where the trade road crosses the river ford, the only dry crossing for 40 miles in either direction, and a hold that owns the crossing owns the toll, and a hold that owns the toll mints its own coin."
Hi everyone! Thank you for staying with me. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Stay close, stay connected.
My grandmother's grandmother struck the first Vance penny, a river and a ford stone on one side, our pale hawk on the other. There is a strong box in the cellar that was built to hold them. I want you to understand that we were not poor in the way the songs make poor. We were poor in the slow way, the way that takes 3 generations and a great deal of pride. The silver came first. There was a seam under the eastern hill that my great-uncle opened with borrowed money. And for 9 years it paid. And then one winter it stopped paying, the way seams do, all at once and with no warning. And the borrowed money did not stop being owed. Then the road moved. A new pass was cut through the mountains to the north, shorter and lower and opened 3 weeks longer each spring. And the long caravans that had crossed our ford for 2 centuries began to cross somewhere else. The toll thinned, then the winters came hard, 2 of them back to back, the kind that kill the seed corn in the ground. And a hold that cannot feed its own people borrows against next year, and then against the year after that. By the time I was old enough to read a ledger, and I read them young, I was the only one in the house who would. Every line in ours bent toward the crown. That is the part no one outside a border hold understands. When a hold cannot pay, it does not simply default and fall. There is an older law for that, a border law, written when the realm was younger and coin was scarcer, and the pale throne needed its frontier holds loyal more than it needed them solvent. The bond debt, a hold that cannot settle in silver settles in person. It sends one of its own to the crown, sworn and bound, a living payment to serve out what coin cannot cover. It is a clean law. It is a merciless law. It treats a person as a sum. My father rolled the debt over for 11 years. He was good at that, at least. At the rolling, at the letters, at the careful flattery that buys another season. He was a proud man, and pride is a kind of patience. He believed, I think, all the way to the end, that one more good harvest or one more thaw on the silver seam would undo it. He believed the way a man believes a thing he cannot afford to stop believing. The last extension lapsed in the autumn I turned 26. The chamberlain came himself. That was how I knew it was over. Not a letter, not a clerk, but a man in the crown's gray riding up our muddy lane with 2 riders behind him, and a sealed writ in a leather case. He read it in our cold hall standing, while my father sat. The bond debt was invoked. The price was named. House Vance would deliver one of its own to Hollowfrost, to the Pale Court, sworn to the Queen. A bonded consort, the writ said, which is a particular word, and everyone in that hall knew exactly what it meant. A consort settles a debt with her person. She is given to the crown to be claimed, kept, used as the crown sees fit, and set aside when the crown is finished. That is the cold arithmetic of it. The court has a word for how long such a payment lasts, and the word is not long. My father did not look at me. He looked at my sister, at Elsbeth, his heir, the daughter the hold could not spare. And I watched him do the arithmetic too, and I watched him fail to say her name. And I understood that the silence in that hall was about to choose for him, so I spoke first. I said I would go. I did not say it bravely. I want to be honest about that, because the songs would make it brave. I said it the way you put down a thing too heavy to keep holding, quickly, before my arms could change their mind. It was the only line in the whole transaction that was mine. Everything after that had been decided by a law 200 years older than me. But the choosing of which Vance, that at least I took out of my father's hands and put in my own. I packed one trunk. I left the ledgers I had kept since I was 12. I took my mother's key. It is a small brass thing on a thin chain, the key to that cellar strongbox, and the strongbox has been empty since before she died. There is no coin left in Greymarch to put in it. She gave it to me anyway, the last winter, and folded my hand around it and did not explain, and I have worn it at my wrist ever since. When I am studying myself, I turn it once around, under my thumb. I did not know, packing it, why I was bringing the key to an empty box to a court that would have no use for either. I brought it the way you bring the one thing that is only yours. I had heard of the queen the way everyone in the realm had heard of the queen. Vesseline Andrault took the pale throne young and has held it longer than I have been alive. And in all those years, not one rising against her has outlived the rising. They do not say she is cruel. That is the strange part, the part that frightened me more than cruelty would have. They say she is exact. The lords who moved against the pale throne simply hold no lands now. The names that crossed her are names the court has stopped saying, the way you stop saying the name of a debt you have finally paid. She is never loud. The realm has learned that the quieter the winter crown goes, the more final it is. They call her heart a hearth gone to embers, a cold thing in a stone room, warmth banked down so low you cannot prove it is still there. I rode north for 9 days toward that, a delivered payment in a hired cart, turning an empty key at my wrist, doing the only arithmetic I had left, which was how many seasons a consort lasts at the pale court before the crown is finished. What I had not accounted for, what no arithmetic of mine could have reached, was a woman who would look at the debt the realm handed her and the body it came attached to, and refuse to read the writ the way it was written. But I am getting ahead. That night, at the threshold of rooms far finer than any discarded payment is ever given, there was a knock. Dame Caronde, with terms. The scent pull lands at the public naming. Dame Caronde's with terms knock from Act 3 transitions into the private contradiction. First touch stays in Act 8. None here. Dame Caronde came in with terms. I had braced for a contract of bondage. The writ read aloud, my body itemized, the date my service would be considered spent. I had read such writs. My family had signed several. What she said on the small table by the cold hearth was a single folded page and a brass-bound box of papers. And what she said first was not a clause at all. The queen sees you at the 8th bell, she said, in the hall, before the court. I understood the shape of it, the public naming, the consort sealed in the realm's eyes, the debt closed where everyone could watch it close. I turned my mother's key once around my wrist with my thumb, the small brass weight of an empty box, and I let the woman tell me how to stand and where to look and when to say nothing, which was most of the time. She watched my thumb move on the key. She did not remark on it. She had, I would learn, a habit of seeing a thing fully and saying nothing about it, which is its own kind of mercy in a court that survives on what it can use. Then she said the thing I would carry the rest of my life, though I did not know it yet. She has given you a door, child, she said. No queen before her gave anyone a door. I did not know what she meant. I thought she meant the room. The hall of the pale throne was colder than the galleries, which I would not have thought possible. Frost held the high glass. The court stood in its furred ranks along both sides, and the gold cups caught what little light there was, and at the far end the high stone seat waited with the crown set on the arm of it, not on her head, and the queen standing beside the seat the way she had stood the night I arrived, as if the throne were a thing she used and not a thing she needed. She let me cross the whole length of that floor alone. I counted my own steps because counting is what I do when I am afraid and refuse to show it. I counted the lords. I found the one who mattered without being told. A broad coastal man with a salt gray beard and rings on every finger, who looked at me the way a creditor looks at a coin he suspects is clipped. Lord Vale. I did not know his name yet. I knew his face the way you know weather. Beside him, a young woman in pale, saltward blue watched me with a smile so polished it had no warmth left in it at all. Lady Senate. I catalogued her too. I catalogued everyone. It is the only wealth my family left me, the habit of accounting. I stopped where Dame Caronde had told me to stop. The Queen looked at me then, fully, for the first time since the gate, and the scent reached me. I want to be exact about this, because nothing in my arithmetic had prepared me for it, and I have never trusted a thing my body did before my mind agreed. It came across the cold floor the way warmth comes off a stone that has held the sun, cedar smoke and cold iron, a hearth gone to embers in a room made of winter. It was not a smell. It was a recognition. Something in the oldest part of me that I had spent 26 years keeping braided and pinned turned its head toward her and knew her. And I felt the answer leave me before I could stop it. Ink and winter rind, the cold paper and bitter orange of whatever I am underneath the accounting. And I understood that she had caught it, because the muscle along her jaw moved once and went still. A fated thing, a mate pull. The court has 100 words for it, and I refused all of them in the same breath I felt it. I was a payment. I knew what payments were for. I would not also be a fool who mistook her own delivery for a destiny. The Queen set down the pewter cup. She did not raise her voice. I have never, in all the time since, heard her raise her voice. She spoke into the cold, and the cold carried it to every furred corner of the hall. House Vance owed the crown a debt, she said. The debt is settled. Lady Ottilie Vance stands under my protection as my bonded consort from this hour. The word went through the court like a draft under a door. Consort. I watched them hear it. I watched Lord Vale's ring still on the arm of his chair. I watched Lady Senate's polished smile hold itself in place by main force. I watched 200 faces do the arithmetic I had already done. A pauper's daughter, a fallen border house, a debt paid in flesh. And arrive, every one of them, at the same conclusion, which was the conclusion I had arrived at in the cart at dusk. She had taken what she was owed. That is what they saw. That is what a consort sealed before the court means. A thing acquired, to be used as the crown sees fit, and set aside when spent. Her thumb passed once across the heavy signet ring on her right hand. Slow. A single pass. I had no idea what it meant. I only knew, watching it, that it was the one part of her that was not entirely still, and that she had done it the night I arrived as well, and I filed it the way I file everything. A detail I did not yet have the rest of. She did not look at the court when she finished. She looked at me, and then she turned and left the hall before the murmur could become anything she would have to answer. And the cold closed over where she had stood, and Dame Caronde's hand was at my back, steering me out the way a tide steers a boat that has forgotten it cannot move on its own. So that was the first truth. I had been claimed in front of the realm. The second truth came that night, and it unmade the first. She came to my rooms herself. No page, no guard, no ceremony, a knock, and then the Queen of Merrowmere in the doorway of the room she had given me, the crown nowhere on her, a plain dark coat against the cold, the pewter cup left somewhere behind her. She did not come in. She stood at the threshold the way Dame Caronde had stood with her terms, and I understood the geography of it only later, that she was keeping the line on purpose, that the standing outside was the first sentence of everything she was about to say. I rose. I did not know the courtesy a consort owed, and so I gave her the only one I had, which was to wait. She looked at the room, the fine, cold room, far finer than any spent payment is given. Then she looked at me. What was said in the hall is for the court, she said. I said nothing. I had been taught nothing, all day, so well. She went on, and her sentences were short and complete and unhurried, the way I would come to know them, each one set down like a stone laid square. The debt is real, she said. It is paid. The title is a shield. It will keep the lords off you, and it will keep your father's hold standing. That much is true, and that much I have done. She paused. The jaw again. held. "The rest is not mine to take," she said. I did not understand. I said so, with my silence, which she read. "The bond," she said. "The claim they think I have made. I have not made it. I will not make it. Not by force." The 3 words landed in the cold room and stayed there. "I have given you these rooms," she said. "The door latches from the inside. There is no latch on it from the hall, and there will not be. You may refuse me anything. You may refuse me everything. You may refuse the bond, the touch, the consort's bed, my company at table, my company at all. None of it is owed. The debt was coin, and the coin is settled. What is between us, if anything is ever between us, is not a thing your family signed away. It is not in the writ. It cannot be paid. It can only be given, and only by you, and only if you ever wish to." I stood in the room that was too fine for what I was supposed to be, and I felt the whole architecture of my life rearrange itself around a thing I had no name for, because I had spent 26 years preparing to endure a claim, and no part of me had prepared to be asked. I had braced for a hand at my wrist. I got a door I could lock against her. I turned the brass key once around my wrist before I knew I was doing it, the empty box, the inheritance of nothing. And her gaze went to it and stayed a moment, the way Dame Caron's had, and she did not ask. Her thumb moved across the signet ring, the single slow pass. And this time, this is the thing I want to be exact about. I saw it, truly saw it, because I had nothing else to do but watch her. And I did not know what it meant, but I knew it meant something, that the stillest woman in the realm had one place where she was not still, and that she had just shown it to me without knowing she had. Why, I almost asked. Why give a payment a door? I did not ask. I was not ready for the answer, and I think she knew that too. She stepped back from the threshold, one step, into the cold of the hall, leaving the door open on her side, leaving the latch on mine. "You choose," she said, and she left it to me to close. The cart stopped at her gate, and the morning after it stopped inside me too. I woke at the 6th bell in rooms that were mine, and could not, for a long breath, account for the silence. No bolt had been drawn from outside. No one had come in the dark. The latch I had set the night before was exactly as I had left it, on my side, by my hand. I lay and looked at the cold gray light coming through glass that never quite warmed, and I made myself say the plain fact of it. I had been delivered as a settlement, and the first thing the crown had done with what it owned was leave the lock to me. I turned my mother's brass key once around my wrist with my thumb. The strong box it opened had been empty since I was a girl. The habit had outlived the use of it. Dame Caron came with the day, and with the day came the geography of the Pale Court. She taught me the way one teaches a child a dangerous house. Here you may walk, here you wait to be brought. The high seat in the hall of the Pale Throne is never approached but at her word. The court drinks from gold. You will be offered gold. You will take it. She does not. She drinks from a plain pewter cup and lets the lords make of that what they will, which is nothing, because they have never once read her right. I catalog the cup before I catalog the woman. It seems safer. You will be watched, Dame Caron said. Every hour. They are deciding what you are. I said I knew what I was. I had been told my whole journey north. She looked at me then with the flat kindness of someone who has served 2 reigns and buried most of what she believed in the first. The keys at her belt made a small sound when she shifted. A whole ring of them, household keys, more than a hand could hold. Mine was one, cold against my pulse. I noticed the difference and did not know yet that it meant anything. "You have been told a story, child," she said. "You have not yet been told the truth. There is a distance between them, and you are standing in it. The court treated the bond as sealed. I learned this within the hour. They called me consort to my face and something else behind their hands, and both names assumed the same thing, that the queen had collected what the debt delivered, that the writ had been read the way writs are read, that I was hers in the old plain sense the border law intended. The lords inclined their heads, the precise depth owed to a thing the sovereign had taken, and not a finger's width more. Lady Senate Vale smiled at me across the cold, reflecting court, the way one smiles at weather that will pass. And it was not true. That was the strange machine of it, the gear that did not mesh. Everyone in Hollowfrost believed the bond was made, and the bond was not made. It existed in the court's eyes, and nowhere else. The queen had named me consort before the realm and had not asked me for so much as my hand, and the gap between the public claim and the private silence was the only ground I had to stand on. I stood on it carefully. I did not yet trust it to hold. She received me in the cold library that afternoon, alone but for Dame Caronde at the far door, and a boy of 15 running letters, Pym, who would prove to matter more than any lord in this telling, though neither of us knew it then. The crown was not on her head. It was set aside on the arm of the chair, as it had been the first night, as I would learn it always was when she was not performing the fact of being queen. She read a state letter and let me stand and did not pretend to be occupied so that I would feel small. She simply finished the line before she looked up. Her hair was back off her face. The single line of silver at her left temple caught the gray light. The pewter cup sat at her hand. I had come with a thing to ask, and I had spent the morning learning to ask it of a woman who could refuse it with one word and never raise her voice doing so. I said I had a condition. She set the letter down. She did not say you are in no position to set conditions, which was the sentence the whole court would have said, which was true by every law that had carried me here. She said, "Tell me." I said my family's hold did not know whether I lived. I said I wanted the right to write to Greymarch honestly, and to be told the truth when I asked it of her, and not to be escorted through my own rooms like a thing that might be stolen or might run. The room was very quiet. Her thumb passed once across the heavy signet ring on her right hand, that single slow pass I had first seen at the gate and could not read. I watched it now the way I watched everything, filing it, not yet knowing it was the one place she kept what she held back. "Write to them tonight," she said. "The page will carry it. You will have honest answers. And the doors are yours." They were always yours. I had braced for negotiation. I had a second position ready, and a third, the way you ready arguments for a creditor. I did not need them. She had granted the whole of it before the cup in my hands had cooled, and the asymmetry I had been raised to expect, the one the lords assumed, the one the writ promised, turned quietly over and lay the other way, and neither of us named it. I said thank you. "It came out smaller than I meant," she said. "You do not have to thank me for what is yours." Then she took up the letter again, and I understood I was dismissed. And I understood also that being dismissed in this room meant only that I was free to go, and not that I had been used and set down. The difference was enormous. The difference was the whole of it. I carried it out with me like the cup, warm and strange in my two hands. Pym caught me in the gallery, breathless the way that boy was always breathless, with too much in his mouth and no sense yet of what should stay in it. "They're betting on you, my lady," he said. "Below stairs. How long you'll last. Most say a season, some say less." I asked him, last at what? He went red and did not answer that, which was its own answer. Then he leaned in, lower, as if the cold glass might carry it. "And Lord Vale's been asking after you," he said, 3 times this week. "What house, what debt, who your people are. He asks like a man counting coin he means to spend." The gallery glass was frozen at the edges, the reflecting court below it white and still. I turned my mother's key once around my wrist, the empty box, the old habit, and I thought of the door upstairs that locked only from my side, and I wondered for the first time not whether the freedom she had given me was real, but whether she had given it to me because something was already coming that would test it. The first week passed in a quiet I did not know how to spend. I had spent my whole life accounting for what would be asked of me. At Greymarch there was always a thing owed and a thing expected, and I had learned to know the shape of a demand before it was spoken. the way you learn the weather of a place by the ache of an old brake. I arrived at Hollowfrost braced for the demand. I waited for it the way you wait for a creditor at the door. It did not come. She did not send for me. This is the thing I could not account for. A consort named before the court, sealed in the realm's eyes. And the woman who had named me did not send for me once in 7 days. I dined where Dame Caronda set my place, 2 seats down from a throne I rarely saw filled. I walked the cold galleries. I read in the library after the household slept, and the queen, who had a whole realm to move and moved it without raising her voice, left me alone inside the room she had given me, with a door that latched from my side. I turned my mother's key once around my wrist and tried to read it as strategy, a thing held back to be taken later, a patience that was only a longer kind of appetite. It would have been easier if it were. On the 3rd night, she was in the library when I came down. I had thought the room mine at that hour. It was past the 2nd bell. The household was asleep. I had counted on the cold and the dark and the one lamp I lit at the long table. She was at the far end of it, in a plain chair, not the carved one, a stack of sealed letters at her elbow, and the pewter cup near her hand. The crown was not on her. It was not even in the room. Her black hair was back off her face, and the single line of silver at her left temple caught the lamp when she turned her head. I stopped at the threshold the way you stop at the edge of cold water. She said, "Stay or go. Either. Not stay. Not the command as sovereign hands down." Both doors held open, and the choosing left to me. I stayed. I took the chair at the other end, as far as the table allowed, and I opened my book and did not read a line of it. What happened next was very small. She read her letters. I did not read mine. The lamp burned between us and the cold pressed at the glass, and neither of us crossed the length of that table, and I understood, somewhere in the 2nd hour, that I was not being permitted to be there. I was simply there, the way another person is in a room, with no ledger keeping the cost of it. I catalogued her because I did not know how else to be near her. The thumb across the signet ring. Once. Slow. When she broke a seal she did not like the look of. I had begun by then to notice it. I did not yet know what it meant. I knew only that it was the single restless thing in a woman who was otherwise still as stone, and that she did not know she did it, the way I did not know for years, that I turned the key at my wrist. She rose first. She gathered her letters. At the door she paused, and I thought, now, the old brace coming up in me out of habit, now she will ask for something. She said, "Good night, Lady Vance." That was all. Cedar smoke and cold iron where she had passed. A hearth gone to embers in a stone room. And then the door. And then the quiet again. And me sitting with a book I had not read. And a brace I had not needed. Feeling foolish and feeling something else I did not have the courage yet to name. By the end of the fortnight, I had begun to test it. Not deliberately at first. It is only that a person who has been told she is free does not believe it until she is pushed on the walls. So I pushed. I asked Dame Caronde whether I might send a letter to Greymarch to my father without it being read first. I expected the careful court answer, the "I will inquire of Her Majesty," the delay that is its own refusal. Dame Caronde looked at me with those dry, kind eyes and the ring of household keys at her belt. And she said the Queen had already given the instruction, the morning after I arrived. Lady Vance's letters go sealed, read by no one. I had only to ask for wax. I did not know what to do with that. I had built no shelf in myself to set it on. "She has given you a door, child," Dame Caronde said. "She says it like it is a small thing. It is not a small thing. No queen before her gave anyone a door." I asked her why. She did not answer that. She only looked at me a moment longer, the way you look at someone standing very near an edge they cannot see. And then she went back to her keys. I wrote my father a letter that night that said almost nothing true, because there was no way to write the truth of it. I am well. I am kept better than I feared. Do not worry for me. And I sat a long while with the wax and the candle, and could not make the sentence that said she has not touched me, she will not. She has built the whole arrangement so that she cannot, because I did not understand it well enough to write it down. There was one evening I have kept apart from the others. A month into the winter, in the small council room off the gallery, she was reviewing the salt accounts, and I had been seated nearby. Not summoned exactly. Dame Caronde had a way of placing me where the queen would be, and I had stopped pretending I minded it. The brazier had burned low. The accounts ran long. At some point, I leaned to take a paper she had set aside and asked about, and the lean carried me nearer than the careful 8 inches of cold air I kept between us without ever deciding to. And her hand came up. It came up the way a hand comes up to steady another person, toward my shoulder. I saw it move, and I did not pull back, and there was a moment. I have turned it over more times than I will say, where her hand was near enough that I felt the warmth come off it, the heat of a person against the cold of that room, and I waited. I want to be honest about the waiting. Some part of me, the part schooled at Grey March to expect the demand and endure it, had waited for a touch since the cart stopped at her gate. And here it was, a breath away, freely arrived, no debt in it, and I held still and let it come. It did not come. Her hand stopped. It hung there one instant, that close, and then she drew it back. Not sharply. The way you set down a thing you have decided is not yours to live. She returned it to the account on the table, and her thumb passed once across the signet ring, slow. And this time I understood a part of what it meant, though I had no word for it yet. It was not appetite held back to be fed later. It was a hand kept on its own side of a line she had drawn and would not cross, no matter that the line had, for one breath, leaned toward her on its own. The room was very quiet. 8 inches of cold air. I had not measured it on purpose. I measured it now. She said without looking up, "You leaned for the paper." I said yes. She said, "I know," and that was all she let either of us have of it. She slid the paper across the table the rest of the way, so I would not need to lean again, so the choosing of any nearness would be mine, and never an accident she could be accused of arranging. And we went back to the salt accounts, as though her hand had not, a moment before, decided in the air between us to be exactly as kind as she had sworn to be. I went up to my rooms that night, and I latched the door from my side, the way I did every night, the door she left open on hers. I stood with my hand on the cold latch a long time. For the first time, it did not feel like a wall the captive draws against the keeper. It felt like a thing she had given me to hold, so that I would always know the holding was mine. The third night of the second week, she did not come to the library. I had grown used to the library. That is a dangerous sentence to write, but it is the true one. I had grown used to the cold, long gallery, where she read her state letters by a single lamp, and to the chair across from hers that no one had told me was mine, and that had become mine anyway. I had grown used to the silver line at her left temple catching the lamp when she bent her head, and to the particular economy of the way she turned a page, and to the pewter cup at her elbow, while the rest of the palace drank from gold. I had grown used to cataloging her, which is a thing I do to a room before I trust it. And I had not yet asked myself what it meant that I had begun doing it to a person. The third night she did not come, and I sat in the chair that was mine across from the chair that was empty, and I understood that I had been waiting. I did not like understanding that. Dame Caronde found me there at the late bell. She carried her ring of household keys at her belt, the many keys to my one, and she set a fresh lamp down without asking whether I wanted it. "She is with the saltward lords tonight," Caronde said. I said nothing. I turned my mother's key once around my wrist. "Lord Vale has asked for 3 audiences this fortnight," she said. "The Queen has granted 1. He is not a man who enjoys the arithmetic of that." I asked her what Lord Vale wanted. I asked it lightly, the way you ask a thing you have already half guessed and do not want confirmed. "He wants what men like him always want," Caronde said. "A door of his own, into the royal line. He had picked the lock he meant to use years ago. His niece, and then a debt cart came up from Grey March carrying you, and the Queen gave you rooms." She let that sit. "You are the wrong key in his lock, child," she said. "That is all you are to him. Do not mistake it for anything that has to do with you." I sat with that for a moment. It had everything to do with me, of course. I was the body the debt came attached to. But I understood what she meant, that the danger circling the cold galleries was not aimed at Ottilie Vance, who was nothing, but at the door the queen had opened by giving the nothing a room. The court could forgive a queen for taking a payment and using it as payments were used. The court could not forgive a queen for choosing one. By the fortnight, I had learned the shape of the watching. The pale court watched the way frozen water watches, without seeming to move, holding everything it sees. I learned which gold cups belonged to which lords, and which way they tilted toward Vale when he spoke. I learned that Lady Senate Vale wore the cold like a coat cut to fit her, and that she smiled at me with the polished cruelty of someone who had been told I would not last. I learned to sit where a consort sits and to say what a consort says, which is almost nothing, and to catalog from that nearly silent place everything the room did not know I was reading. And I learned that the queen watched me, not the way the court watched. The court watched to measure how long. She watched the way I watched her, as if she were keeping an account she did not intend to spend, taking note of a thing only because she did not want to lose track of it. I caught it once across the whole length of the hall of the pale throne, her gray eyes finding me where I stood among the lesser seats, and her thumb passed once across the signet ring, that slow, single pass, and then she looked back to the lord who was speaking as if she had never looked away at all. I had begun by then to read the tell. I did not yet have all of it, but I had the first of it. The thumb moved when she was holding something back. The court had never learned it. I was learning it in the cold, one pass at a time, the way you learn a language by the words a person says when they think the saying does not show. That night she came to the library after all, late, the letters under her arm. She did not apologize for the night she had missed. She did not explain the saltward lords. She sat, and she set the pewter cup at her elbow. And after a while, without looking up, she said my name. Ottilie. Only that. A name said alone, which at her court was a thing that cost something. I said yes. She said, if a man at this court ever asks you to carry a word to me, you will tell me who asked and what before you carry it. I said I would. She said, and if a man at this court ever tells you that you may improve your position by some small disloyalty, you will know that he is not offering you a door. He is offering you a longer fall. I said I understood. She turned a page. The silver caught the lamp. She did not say Vale's name, and she did not need to. And I understood that she had just done, in her economy of complete short sentences, the only thing she would permit herself to do. She had warned me, and she had not made the warning a wall, and she had left me, as she left me everything, the choice of whether to heed it. You choose, she had said, at the threshold the first night. She did not say it again now. She did not have to. It was in every term she gave me and every term she withheld. A month into winter, the letter came that I was not meant to see. I came into the library at the late hour, and she was already there, which was not unusual. And she was holding a sealed page, which was not unusual either. What was unusual was that she was not reading it. She was holding it, the way you hold a thing you have already read and cannot unread. And her thumb was not moving across the ring, as if she had reached the bottom of whatever she had been holding back and found a floor there she had not expected. She saw me see her. For a moment, neither of us moved, and the 8 inches of cold air we always kept between us in that room felt, for the first time, like the only warm thing in the palace, a perimeter not drawn against me, but around something we had both, without saying it, begun to stand inside. She folded the page once and set it under the others. It is nothing you need carry, she said. I said all right, but it was not nothing. I had catalogued her too long by then. The pewter cup sat untouched. The crown was on the arm of the throne where she always set it when she meant to be a woman and not a sovereign. And tonight she had set it there and was a sovereign anyway, braced, the way the realm braces before the deep cold. The sword she never drew was at her hip, She had never drawn it in front of me. I had begun to understand that this was not because there was nothing she would draw it for. I went up to my rooms. I latched the door from my side, the door she left open on hers. I stood with my hand on the cold latch a long time, and I did not feel like the captive drawing a wall against the keeper, and I did not feel like a woman holding a thing she had been given to hold. For the first time, I felt like the thing on the other side of the latch was the one in danger, and that the door she had given me, the one she never crossed, opened both ways, and that something was coming up the cold galleries that she had folded into a pay and set under the others so that I would not have to carry it. I turned my mother's key once around my wrist, the empty box, the old habit, and I thought, when it comes, I will not stand behind the latch. The letter came up the cold galleries on a Thursday, and it was not folded under the others. Pim brought it to me. He was out of breath, which Pim usually was, but this was a different kind of breathless. He did not talk too much. That was how I knew. He set a small square of paper on the table in my rooms, and he stood there with his hands twisting the hem of his page's coat, and he looked at me the way a child looks when he has heard a thing he was not meant to hear and cannot now unhear it. "They are saying it in the lower hall, my lady," he said. "They are saying the queen broke her own vow. They are saying she took the bond from you by force, that the consort title was conquest after all, and that there is a witness who will swear to it before the lords." I sat with that for a moment. I turned my mother's key once around my wrist, the empty box, the old habit. Then I asked him who. He did not know. He only knew that Lord Vale of the Saltward had been in the lower hall 3 nights running, and that a chambermaid who had served in my wing had been seen leaving by the Saltward stair with a purse she had not carried in. Dame Caronde found me before I had finished dressing for the chamber. She did not knock. She came in with her ring of household keys still at her belt and her slate coif slightly askew, which I had never once seen, and she shut the door behind her with her own back against it. "Vale has manufactured a witness," she said. "A woman who will tell the Court of Lords that she saw the Queen collect the bond against your will. There is a document, a consort writ, forged in the old form, sealed with a copy of the signet, that says you were claimed by force on the night you arrived. If the Lords believe it, the Queen has broken the one vow her whole reign stands on, not by force. The thing she swore on the pale throne the day she took it. Vale will have proved her a liar in the one place she cannot afford it, and the VL match walks into the gap." "And me," I said. Dame Caronde looked at me, and for the first time the dryness was gone out of her entirely. "You are the proof, child," she said. "You are the body the writ is written on. If they believe it, you are not a consort. You are evidence. And evidence is sent home when the trial is done, back to Greymarch. Disgraced, to a hold that will not survive the cost of your return, with the crown's forbearance withdrawn the same hour. He has built a thing that ruins her, and ruins you in a single stroke, and he has built it so that the more she protects you, the truer it looks." I stood with my hand on the cold edge of the table. I thought of the door that locked only from my side. I thought of 8 inches of cold air kept across 100 nights. I thought of a hand withdrawn before it landed, again and again, a restraint the court had no name for because the court had never seen a queen refuse a thing she was owed. And now the very refusal was being dressed up as its opposite, and there was no proof of the truth except a perimeter no one had watched her hold. She sent for me that night, not to her chamber, to the small cold study off the hall of the pale throne, where the crown was set aside on the arm of a lesser chair, and the pewter cup sat untouched and going cold beside the sealed letters she was no longer pretending to read. She was standing when I came in. She did not sit. The single line of silver at her left temple caught the low light, and her thumb passed once, slowly, across the signet ring. "You have heard," she said. I said I had. "There is a way to end it tonight," she said. "I can name Vale's witness a liar, and have the matter closed by sovereign word. No one in this realm will gainsay me to my face. The writ disappears. The woman disappears. You are never spoken of in it again." She paused. The thumb moved across the ring a second time. And I understood by now what it cost her to keep speaking. But it would be the rule of a queen who silences the charge instead of answering it, she said. The lords would obey, and they would never again believe the vow. They would believe I buried the proof because the proof was true. I would keep you, and lose the only thing that made keeping you mean anything. I would become, in their eyes and in time, exactly the kind of crown I swore I would not be, the kind that takes. The room was very quiet. I had come up the cold galleries braced to be defended, to be hidden, to have the whole weight of it lifted off me by a sovereign who could lift anything. And here she was, telling me the cost of lifting it, and asking me, not in words, but in the stillness, in the cup going cold, in the thumb she could not keep from the ring, what I wanted her to do. I thought of Greymarch, the empty strongbox, my father's silence, the arithmetic I had done on the cart, the one that said a payment like me does not last. And I thought, I will not be the reason she becomes what she refused to be. I will not let her spend the foundation of her crown to buy my quiet. If she lies for me, she saves the consort and loses the queen. And I would rather be sent home whole than kept by a woman I had made smaller. Do not silence it, I said. She went still in a way I had not seen. Let me stand before the lords, I said. Let me tell them the truth, that you have never once taken what I did not give, that the door locks from my side, that the bond is mine and unclaimed, and that I am here because I have not yet chosen to leave. If the cost of the truth is that they learn you have refused me 100 nights, then let them learn it. I would rather be the proof of your vow than the cover for breaking it. She crossed the room then. Not to touch me. She stopped a careful distance away, the distance she always kept, and she looked at me as though I had handed her something she had braced a whole reign not to be handed. You would face them, she said. You would put your own name in their mouths to keep mine clean. I said yes. She said nothing for a long moment. Then she told me the cost on her side, the one she had not yet named, and I understood why the letter had been folded under the others, why she had carried it alone. To prove the vow is real, she said, I will have to show them why I made it. I will have to tell the court of lords what was done to me before I was queen, that I was once a clause in a ledger myself, a bond promised without my consent to seal a treaty between two houses. It is the one thing in my life no one in this realm has been permitted to know. Vale has wagered I would rather lie than say it aloud. He has built the whole thing on the certainty that a queen does not show the court her own old wound. Her thumb went to the ring. And then I watched it. It stopped. He is wrong, she said. She would give it up. The privacy of an entire life, the leverage Vale wanted her to protect at any cost. She would lay her oldest, unhealed thing on the cold floor of the Hall of the Pale Throne, in front of every lord who had ever measured himself against her and lost, so that they would believe the vow was real, and that I had never been forced. Why? I almost asked. The same word I had not asked her on the first night. This time, I did. Why show them that, I said. To save one consort you have not even claimed. She looked at me, and the answer was not a queen's answer. Because the vow was always for someone, she said. I never knew who. Now I do. The court would convene at the high bell. The writ would be read. The witness would swear. And then a queen, who had never in living memory explained herself to anyone, would stand and explain herself to everyone, to keep a promise to a woman who was meant to be a payment. I turned my mother's key once around my wrist, and the bond, unspoken and unclaimed through all of it, was the only thing left in the room that neither of us had yet settled. I sat with that for a moment. The court had gone. The witness Lord Vale had bought stood unbought now, his swearing undone by a queen who had done the one thing no one alive had ever made her do. She had explained herself. She had let the assembled lords see the writ of her own old bargain, the clause she had once been, the bond she had been promised into before she was crowned. Meant to be sealed without her wanting it, She had set her whole reign on a table in front of men who wanted her weak, and she had spent it to prove a vow about a woman who had arrived in a hired cart. And now there was no court left to perform it for. There was only the high cold room, and the crown set aside on the arm of the throne where she always left it when she stopped being a sovereign and became only herself, and the plain pewter cup, and the two of us. She did not come toward me. She had never once come toward me across a room I had not first opened. "You could have let them send me back," I said. "No," she said. "You could have. It would have cost you nothing. A disgraced consort, a broken house, a witness sworn, the Vael match in the spring. The whole realm would have read it as you being wise." "The realm reads a great many things," she said. Her thumb moved once across the signet ring. I watched it go. I had watched it for a season now, and I knew it the way I knew my own pulse, the slow single pass that meant she was holding something back. "Tell me the rest," I said. And she did. She told me to be a young royal valued in the count of what an alliance was worth, promised across a table to seal a thing that had nothing to do with you, and to understand very young that no one in the room had asked the one person the bond was made of whether she would have it. She told me the match had ended before it could be sealed, said it plainly, the way she said everything, a name that the realm no longer spoke, a quiet that closed over it, and that on the day she took the pale throne, she had sworn a single thing into the cold of that hall, where no one could hear her swear it but the stone. "No bond under my crown," she said, "would ever be taken by force." The room was very quiet. "I have kept it," she said. "I will keep it now. You were a debt the chamberlain handed me. I gave you a door because the only thing I had it in me to give a person delivered like a payment was the same thing no one ever gave me. A way out. I have left it open all winter. It is open now. You may walk through it tonight, and I will see your house held, and your debt cleared, and your name kept, and you will never once owe me the thing the court thinks you owe me." She set the pewter cup down. "The bond is not mine to take," she said. "It was never mine to take. It is yours to give or to keep until the end of your life, not by force." 3 words, the same 3. A cold court ruling once, a refusal the realm could not read. Standing in that room, they were not a ruling at all. They were the most open hand anyone had ever held out to me. And the terror of it was that there was nothing in it but my own choosing. I had spent my whole life being the thing that was decided, the youngest daughter of a house that decided. A payment a hold decided to send. I had crossed a frozen court as a settlement, and I had done my grim arithmetic of how long a settlement lasts. And here was the coldest crown in the realm, the winter crown, the names no one says anymore, telling me she would rather lose her throne's whole foundation than take from me a single thing I had not freely turned and offered with my own 2 hands. I reached up, and I took the pins from my hair. I had not done it once since the cart stopped at her gate. A court omega keeps her hair braided and pinned close. It is the first thing they teach you, that you do not let it down where you can be seen. I let it down. I let it fall, in that high, cold room, in front of the one person I had decided to be seen by. And I watched the millimeter at the corner of her mouth, the one I had cataloged through a whole season of held perimeter, go still and then change. "I am not walking through the door," I said. She said my name, Ottilie. Only that. She had spent it so rarely that hearing it now was like being handed something heavy and warm. "I choose it," I said. "Not the debt, not the writ, not the cart, or the chamberlain, or my father's silence. This, you. I am giving it to you, because it is the one thing in my whole life that has ever been mine to give." I turned my mother's key once around my wrist, the empty box, the old habit, and for the first time the box did not feel empty. "Take it," I said. "I'm up freely, the only way you ever would." For a moment she did not move at all. Then she crossed the room. She crossed it the way she did everything, without haste, a sovereign who never wasted a step, and she stopped close enough that the cold air between us was gone, and her thumb, the thumb that had passed across that ring through every held hour of the winter, the tell the whole court had never once learned to read, did not move. It was the first time in the whole of it that it had stopped. She rested her forehead against mine and brought her hand to my jaw, and I felt the heavy ring cool against the line of my cheek, and she kissed me once, slow and certain and unhurried, the way a vow is made by someone who does not make them twice. And when she set the bond mark at the curve of my neck, it was a thing I had turned and offered and chosen with my own will, sealed at last not by a crown's power, but by my own open hand, and the empty box of my inheritance was after all the long cold years, the one thing that had only ever been waiting to be filled by a choice. "You choose," she had said once, and left it to me to close the door. I had chosen. The door stayed open. We no longer needed it shut. The first thaw came late that year, and I heard it before I saw it. Water moving again under the frozen reflecting court, a sound the pale court had forgotten it could make. I was not a payment anymore. I want to be precise about that, because the court had been so precise about it when I arrived. The writ, the bond debt, the ledger I came attached to. None of those words fit me now, and the people who had used them had been made to find new ones. A season is a long time at court, long enough for a story to be rewritten by everyone who first told it wrong. Lord Vale held the salt word still, but he held it quietly, and he did not ask questions about me anymore. The names that had crossed the throne that winter were not spoken of, in the old way. But I noticed the queen had not taken from him the one thing she could have. She had let him keep his lands. Not by force did not stop at me, it turned out. It had only ever started there. She came into the room while I was at the cold window with the water sound. She set her plain pewter cup down on the table, and beside it, where for so many months there had been only the one, there was now a second. Mine. Pewter, not gold. I had chosen it from the household stores myself, and Dame Caronde, handing it to me, had let one corner of her mouth move, which from her was an entire speech. The crown was not on her head. It was set aside on the arm of the throne in the next hall, where she left it whenever she was only herself, which the court had finally understood to mean most of the time. She stood beside me at the glass. She did not cross any line, because there were no lines left between us to cross, only the habit of a woman who had spent a reign learning to keep her hands still. I turned my mother's key once around my wrist. The empty box, the old habit. I had carried it so long as the proof of everything my family no longer had. The strong box in the gray March hold that had stood open and empty since I was a girl. The inheritance that was only a lock, with nothing behind it. She watched me do it. She had watched me do it 100 times. This time she covered my hand with hers. She moved my thumb, slowly, across her signet ring, the tell I had tracked for a season, the gesture the whole court had never learned to read, now mine to make. Her thumb did not move on its own anymore. There was nothing left in her to hold back. "The box was never empty," she said. "You were only carrying it to the right lock." I sat with that for a moment. Pym came through then, all elbows and news. A page who would one day be a steward if he ever learned to walk into a room slowly. He had a message half-shouted before he was through the door, and he gave it to me without thinking. The way you give a thing to the person it belongs to. "For the consort," he said, from the Grey March Road. He did not even hear himself say it. The consort, not the payment, not the Vance girl, not the debt the realm had folded into a person. A title, given plainly by a child too busy to lie. I watched him not notice, and I understood that the change was finished because it had reached the one person at court who only ever said what was true. The queen took the message from my hand, read it, set it down. Border accounts, Grey March making its own coin again. My father's hold, standing, because she had let it stand quietly. the way she let things stand that she had decided to keep. She picked up her cup. I picked up mine, the second one, the pewter one. You chose this, she said. It was not a question, and it was not a claim. It was only the truth, the way she always gave it to me, complete and unhurried and never once raised. Yes, I said. She did not say it back the way the court would have wanted, sealed and sworn and witnessed. She said it the way she had said it from the first cold night, when she stepped back across the threshold and left the latch on my side and left the choosing to me. Not by force, she said. And this time it meant the opposite of everything they had feared.